Hey there, folks. Dan Fiddler with Caliber Magazine and your episode of Gunvote for Thursday, September 16th. That means there is 4 days left. We vote on Monday. Not with Phil Chow this time, with Matt Hipwell from Wolverine Supplies. Hi there, Matt. How's it going today?
Good. How are you, Dan?
Oh, I've had, I think, 3 cups of coffee and it's 10 a.m., so I'm feeling relatively energized by now. A couple things to talk about. Obviously, we'll rehash the polls as we do every day. Not a lot of movement. Seat breakouts are still showing the Liberals actually gaining more seats, although the polls aren't moving. They're pretty much tied for vote intent. It looks like some of the regional breakdowns are supporting the Liberals in that regard, so they are picking up a few more seats, but it is still looking very, very likely like a minority in either case. But as we discussed yesterday, hard to read the polls. Bloc support in Quebec notably is down a little bit, but still looks to be producing enough of a competitive edge that the Liberals may lose some seats there, so that's good. But at this point now, with the election 4 days in the future, and these polls really reflective more of attitudes 3 or 4 days in the past, it's starting to get a little bit too close to call, especially where the election is. One notable thing, however, is that Manitoba, the lovely province where Wolverine Supplies resides, there in Verdun, seems to be a national hotbed of People's Party activity. It hosted one of the largest rallies for Maxime Bernier about a week ago or so, and it still remains the highest province for PPC support. Not knowing a whole lot about Manitoba, being that I reside on the other side of the Rocky Mountains, I thought maybe Matt, as a longtime Manitoba guy, what do you think it is about Manitoba that makes it popular for People's Party folk?
That is a very interesting question. I'm not 100% sure on it either myself. Manitoba I always find a little bit unique in the political landscape just because of the pure demographics of our population. Our population base, 3/4 of our population is Winnipeg or in the immediate vicinity of Winnipeg. So whatever Winnipeg decides, that is the political landscape for our province. We don't have the luxury of like Saskatchewan, Alberta, where you got two major centers and you can get that split. You don't see that here. So however Winnipeg, the city of Winnipeg decides to vote, that the rest of us are kind of stuck with it. When it comes to the PPC, I'm not entirely sure why we are seeing that. There can be a lot on some of it is people are looking for a change. They're seeing that maybe that's the change that Manitoba wants, or people within the province wants. I've seen signs up in my area with the different ridings now. Some of the a few of their candidates, they speak very well. They are well versed. They have a solid history, and the people out there are looking for that quote unquote freedom choice, and the PPC offers that to them, or they believe the PPC offers that to them. Where it'll end up in 4 days' time, I'm not 100% sure.
Well, and that's where I'm hoping, especially amongst our community, that gun owners do appreciate, what's at stake here, especially in the liberal magazine capacity ban. That they understand that when they actually drop the ballot in the box, that even at the current rate, the 8% that the PPC is polling at in Manitoba may be the difference between a Conservative Party winning that seat or the Liberal member winning that seat, because 10% of that vote maybe went to the PPC. That 5-round, I was doing some research on it yesterday for an article that I'm working on, and that 5-round capacity limit on guns. Obviously, Wolverine is a retailer, but also a distributor for various brands. I'm going to guess Daniel Defense, if your shirt is any indication. How would that impact stuff? I mean, they've just brought out their new bolt-action rifle. That uses an AICS pattern, does it not?
Yes, it does. It depends how they're going to implement it. Like, obviously, with this 5-round capacity, the biggest takeaway I've taken from it, and I haven't spent too much time looking into it, is the fact that they want to get away from this dual-purpose magazine, right? So if a magazine is used in, when I say dual-purpose, it's the 10-round pistol mags, quote-unquote. That's what they're going after. So that dual interchangeability, that's what they're going after. Yes, it's going to create a lot of wrinkles It's going to create a lot of hurdles. It depends on how they word it and how they lay it out. Should it become law? We've seen various degrees of legislation, some really poor stuff over the years, and we've seen some stuff that was written and prepared fairly well. No, I don't want to see it, because we, as firearms owners, and anyone who can think on their feet, know that the magazine capacity has nothing to do with the person's mental ability or anything else that's going to prevent crime or make society safer. Has nothing to do with it. Prime example was there was just not to do with magazines, but there was a drug bust in Winnipeg yesterday, and the firearms that they seized, they were short-barreled Derringers and stuff like that. Well, that stuff hasn't been sold in Canada for years. So you're telling me that now banning making the magazine 5 rounds is going to prevent these guns on the street? Absolutely not.
Well, I mean, that's every time I've done a media availability myself, it always comes up. The futility of gun control in Canada, or not I shouldn't say futility, because that's to be crass and to discount it entirely, but the impracticality of gun control in Canada is such, or really hinges around the notion of the U.S. border. Longest uncontrolled border with the most heavily armed nation on the planet. And we're not talking, there's no other nation that's close to a second place. It's not like, oh, they have a little bit more guns than the second place country. We're talking every other country is way the heck down here, and America's way up here, and we just share an open door, basically, with them. So adding to that, I know a lot of people in the media, especially now, want to talk about 3D printing, and I know, your law enforcement background, 3D printed firearms are something that comes up with the RCMP and West and the firearms division are very concerned about. But I mean, there's a lot of machine shops in this country. There's a lot of metal lathes. There's a lot of billet aluminum. There's a lot of metal or 3D printers. But again, there's also just a big ass border. So
Correct.
Dealing with all those are very difficult. To change gears slightly off of the political thing, since eventually, I mean, we can talk about the polls all day long, but as we've discussed, it's harder and harder to have any kind of relevancy.
Absolutely.
You guys are supporting the OIC. You are one of the claimants on that. Where, maybe just a quick update on where that's at before we get into how that might be, what that might be influencing with regards to election outcomes. So what's been going on?
Well, don't want to give anyone disillusions or hope or anything, but not a lot has changed in the last few months whatsoever here. Nothing has changed. I am in the process. My affidavit is going to be sworn right away. That's something that's going to be worked on I'm doing next week. So, and after that, it's a bit of a waiting pattern. The election is going to make the decision whether what card is going to be played next by which party, for lack of a better term. We're waiting to see what happens. Everyone wants to know what the political landscape is going to be. Conservatives gets in, Liberals gets in, what cards are going to be played, how it's going to unfold. The Canadian firearms community has come together in a large, strong fashion here to support the district court challenge, which is fantastic. And yes, there's still some other independent challenges ongoing as well. It's great to see that as a firearms community, we're breaking down some barriers between the different shooting disciplines. We saw it years ago, Bill C-68. I wasn't as old as I am now then, and that was your converted autos and stuff like that. Well, back then there was a large division, or I felt there was a large division, even as I was a teenager at the time, young person looking into it, that those people, those are bad guns, those are only used for the military. But it wasn't. They didn't see the recreational side. You didn't of things. You didn't see the collection side of things. So there was a large division in the community. I'd like to think that we've made huge inroads as a firearms community since then. We haven't got all the way, but we're making big progress. And it's the likes of yourself and every other media outlet, firearms outlet, firearms store, owner, distributor, you name it, manufacturer, explaining how it affects all of us together. It goes from the recreational shooter who's shooting a 22 Now you get into precision rimfire. Now you're going into PRS. Now you're branching over into to the 3-gun market. Well, you've got sporting plays, trap shooting, skeet shooting. Well, those skills and disciplines tie into 3-gun. You bring in the hunting community, which is huge. We have our outfitters, and I've been in contact with some in Manitoba and on one of the chair of the board through the Manitoba Firearms Advisory Committee that I was sitting on, meeting with earlier this year, where we have hunters and sportsmen from outside of Canada not wanting to enter the country because they are unsure what the firearms law, can they bring their own guns, can they bring ammunition? Well, that is a huge industry. I think we looked the other day, there's 161 licensed outfitters in the province of Saskatchewan. That's just Saskatchewan. That's people that have an outfitting or a guiding license. That doesn't, right? So that's various. That could be me doing it off the corner of my desk to full blown. They got lodges, they got camps.
Yeah, much like PAL license instructors that can be out of a basement or they've got a full classroom.
Yeah, exactly. So when we start looking at that number, someone in Toronto may say, 161 outfitters? That doesn't sound like many. Well, sorry, and you know what? Look back, that's 161 businesses that are drawing people into a province. So that is now everything, all the amenities that come with it. We got hotels, we got gas, we've got restaurants, we've got all the things we think of on the top. But on top of that, you've got the sales of outdoor clothing, equipment, vehicles, all-terrain vehicles. That market is huge. And having that uncertainty and is not helping that industry across the country whatsoever. So getting back, I know I went off a little bit there, but getting back to the OIC, having our firearms community together and speaking together and supporting each other is vital as we move forward.
And it's funny because, it is a bit off, obviously beyond the subject of the OIC, but, you raise an interesting issue with regards to the manner in which the gun community has a reach beyond the firearms community in those areas of, you get into sport shooting, obviously, but you get into hunting lodges and ATVs and fishing gear and that kind of stuff. And you get into various ways where our community does buy all this stuff. A lot of guys have a pickup truck or they have a side-by-side, this sort of thing. I find it quite interesting because we have gained a lot of the cohesion that you referenced. I think I've noticed it even in the 10 years since I started out with Caliber. We've seen a lot of communication. There's a lot more tools available to even the industry to share ideas and talk, and for gun clubs to get better ideas for inspections and stuff like that. But I don't think we've really built the bridge necessarily with the hunting community, to be quite honest, amongst firearms. Because when I call, for example, my background is in the automotive side of things, and when I call up, say, brand X, I'm not going to cite one, and I say, hey, do you want to run an ad for your pickup trucks? Because our readers are predominantly male in the same demographic as your truck buyers. Most of them own pickup trucks. And the answer that comes back is, well, guns are a bit political. We don't want to get into that world. So it's weird because in one hand, I feel like the firearms community can reach out and say, yeah, we are hunters, we are fishermen, we are sportsmen, we are camping people, we are all these things. But those communities don't come back. They don't reflect that attitude back towards the firearms community. We are treated something like a bit of the redheaded stepchild because it's everyone else. It's, we are into camping and I might take a gun when I go camping, but the gun is not why I went camping. So I think there's a lack of understanding there, and I think gun owners could do better just to reach out across that chasm and say, no, we are just normal camping people and that kind of stuff, because there is a bit of an asymmetric sort of relationship I've noticed in that regard, and it would be nice, especially because I keep harping on it, the 5-round capacity thing. I mean, the way the policy is worded is 5 rounds of long arm magazines limited to 5 rounds, period. Yep. I mean, Lee Enfields are 10. So permanently altered, a Lee Enfield magazine is serialized to the gun. They are not considered interchangeable from a technical standpoint. Correct. So from a technologist standpoint, you're looking at what to do. When the law says you got to permanently alter all long arm magazines to hold less than 5 rounds, and I look at a Lee Enfield, I automatically think, well, I need the body to be crimped so it holds 5, and then I need it to be welded to the receiver because you can't interchange it then. It's permanently altered because the second you can pull the magazine out of a Lee Enfield and put 10 rounds in, that's illegal. So if I'm the government, that's where I'm thinking. If you're watching this and you're a hunter or a surplus guy or just a guy that has a Cooey 22 or Winchester 94th rifle, what's that? 9 rounds of 30-30. If you have the rifle, the carbine is 5, but the
Yep.
rifle's 9.
Yeah, it's something like that, and then it's even more if you got a pistol caliber, right?
And you mentioned the dual use. Dual use, both from they want you to stop using pistol mags in your rifles, so all our pistol caliber carbines are gone. I mean, there's no point to having a Ruger PC9 if you got 5 rounds of 9 mil. Like pew pew pew, like that'll get boring quick. But also too, they want us to stop the dual use with regards to like the 50 Beowulf magazines, 40 Smith and Wesson in a 9 mil and stuff like that. Egg will mini shells, 1.75 inches long. You get 5 of those in a magazine tube, you will get 3 rounds of 2 3/4 ammo. That's the total capacity that you will get in a Remington 870 if Trudeau wins. And I know a lot of guys will go, well, when I go hunting, I can only use 2 rounds anyways. I got to plug the mag because that's conservation rules. Yeah, that's fine. You can plug the mag when you're hunting, but it's another thing entirely to tell me that you got to go to the gunsmith and you got to go and put this gun in a press. Hey, buy this brand new Beretta A400 Explorer or something, or Benelli Super Black Eagle. What's that, $3,000? Like,
Yeah. No, exactly. Yeah.
just go stick it in a press. Just crush that mag tube just a little bit so the follower can't go all the way. That's all you got to do. No big deal. Take your $3,000 gun, go pay a gunsmith a couple $100 to go, and then you'll never be able to get more than 3 rounds of 2 3/4 or 2 rounds of mag. Like you'll just have a gun that only ever holds 2 rounds of mag ammo. Like it's
Well, now you go.
hunters got to get off the bench, man. Like
Absolutely. The mini shells there, a lot of people don't even realize they exist. Well, that's just another curveball.
yeah,
That is 100%. That's a big curveball being thrown at everyone now. You go
And I
from
guarantee you,
2 3/4 to 3.5 inch ammunition. Now you throw the Agula mini shells in there. You're only gonna get one
yeah.
3.5 inch in the tube if that's the way the rules go.
And people, I guarantee you, there's a hunter out there listening to this that goes, they never do that. That's crazy. They have no choice. That's what I'm telling you. If they say it's 5 rounds and we're going to cut down on this dual use stuff, the reason the RCMP worded that memo, the famous memo that said magazine capacity is determined by design, what it is designed for. They did that wording because it's the only legally enforceable wording. The alternative is it can only hold 5 rounds of ammo on whatever gun that it might be in and whatever ammo it might be holding. Like that's not legally justifiable. You're a police officer, you can't. It'd be the equivalent of saying, well, I know that you're speeding. I'm not going to say how fast you're going or where, but I know that you could have done it at some point. So this is illegal, is what the alternative is. They have to define it somehow. And they can't ignore that mini shells exist. What are they going to say? Like, little asterisk in the law, 5 rounds, unless it's a shotgun, and because egg will mini shells exist, then there's a special. No, it's 5 rounds.
Yep.
Whatever ammo that works. That's how they'll do it. And you can stick an egg will mini shell in a pump gun, and you can make it work. So you'll get 5 rounds of egg will mini shell. Or, as you said, 1 3.5.
Yeah.
That's it.
It was interesting. You made a statement just a few minutes ago, and it was the same thing that I remember my father and other people talking about in back in the early 90s there with C68. You made the comment about hunters, a generic statement from hunters saying that this won't affect me. It was along those lines, and you're 100% correct. And that's where the education has changed, and you're right, we're not there yet. We've made inroads, but the education has slowly changed and gone, and to help with people understanding that the laws are the laws, and it affects everyone regardless of what you use your firearm for. So you're right, the more bridging we can continue to do with the outdoor associations, the wildlife associations, and that's another whole can of worms some days, depending on who you talk to. But they're all involved. There's a lot of shooters, there's a lot of hunters, there's a lot of sportsmen, and it's about bringing everyone together and realizing that it is what it is. It's like saying the speeding limit only affects those who drive blue trucks. You know what I mean? No, it affects everyone across the board.
That's a great analogy. I really like that one. And I think it's so true, because I think hunters should recognize we are at the point now where, like your analogy points out, they're no longer pointing out blue trucks. They're now just making limits for everything. And I think, again, people have to recognize, hunters especially, that legally they have to. They can't. legally it'd be very, very difficult for a government to make a law. If you're a hunter, if you're watching this and you go, I don't understand AR-15s, I've never wanted one, but I like hunting guns. It'd be very difficult legally for them to limit the capacity of an AR-15 magazine and not limit the capacity of a Lee Enfield. They are both effectively detachable box magazines that hold 10 rounds. They're center fire rifles. One is manual actuated, one isn't. But it doesn't mean you can't build a rifle that takes a Lee Enfield magazine and is semi-auto. They already did it in World War One. It's super awkward looking, and there's like, what, 5 in existence, and there's millions of dollars, but they exist. So, you know, that's what legislators have to deal with, that reality of it exists. Therefore, we have to consider it when we legislate. They can't just pretend a thing doesn't exist when they make a law. So I think it'll be interesting. But more to the point, before we wrap up, the OIC means that something is for the courts. It means that politicians effectively can't meet. And I thought you'd be the perfect person to explain a little bit of that, because I think probably some people don't quite understand what that means and what, you know, the OIC being before the courts means in the immediate aftermath of this election, regardless of the outcome.
Yeah, it's quite simple. Well, quite simply, you pretty well answered the question, or the question right there, by saying if it's before the courts, it's before the courts. It's gotta go through its court process. It's not going to change anything overnight. It's not like it's going to stop right now. It's in the court system. My understanding, it would take a legislative change for that to stop as it is. And I'm sure there'll be some people out there who are way smarter than I am with some of this that can give better insight onto that. But it's in the court system. It's got to do its course before something else can happen. And my understanding is the only thing that could stop it is there would have to be legislation changes for that to happen.
So, like, if the Liberals win and Trudeau was to pass legislation just banning semi-automatic detachable magazine rifles, that would supersede the OIC, because obviously a bunch of the rifles on the OIC would be captured by that legislative change, which would make the court case basically inconsequential.
That's my understanding, and like I said, I'm not 100% on this either, and that's why we hired the legal teams we did, because they've got more resources and a lot more insight on that. I don't know if that would be the correct answer, because that
makes sense to me.
Yeah, it does make sense, but I'm not sure if it works quite like that. It would be almost like they may have to kill that piece of legislation and write new legislation, which is all encompassing. And that's scary, because they've seen the pitfalls already. They've seen the holes in the legislation. So don't tell me they're not going to learn from, I'll call it, quote unquote, their mistakes. It could be something with a lot more teeth and a lot more aggressive than what we're seeing today.
I don't think but you know, that would require something like Bill Blair or someone like that to be a mean and spiteful individual. And I know that is not the case. He's warm heart, just a friendly individual. He certainly doesn't have an axe to grind with the firearms community. That's crazy talk.
That's an interesting statement. I'd like to follow up where you got that feeling from.
Being very, very far away from him. Literally.
Good call.
Put a mountain range between you and Ottawa. It makes a lot of things better. But the government, I've also seen a few comments that's just to clarify, the government cannot withdraw the case. They are the respondent. You are the claimant. That would be effectively the same as if you as a police officer were like, hey, you were drunk driving, I'm going to charge you. And the drunk was like, I'm going to withdraw the case. That's not how that works, right? So,
correct. So essentially it has to follow through its course is how I understand it.
Gotcha. Well, that's very exciting, because it means that effectively it could be used as a little bit of leverage if we need it, and or potentially, hopefully, slow things down if it comes to that. But hopefully we don't need it to slow down. Hopefully we want things to speed up after the 20th. So we'll see how things are. If you want to support Matt, obviously, if you've never heard of them, I don't know what rock you've been living under, but Wolverine Supplies is a pretty big gun business out there in Verdun. Distributing Daniel Defense. What else do you guys distribute these days?
Probably the two newer lines to us that have been really big are Athlon Optics,
yes,
which is a wide, diverse line which is very well received and a lot of uptake, especially in the rimfire PRS market. And the other one is Bio Ammo, which is a new line of biodegradable shotgun ammunition, and that's the hull and everything is 100% biodegradable. So as we talk about green and being green and environmentally friendly, these hulls will biodegrade over time as well.
How nice. I've actually got, we have a review. I just bought a review of those off of a writer, actually. So we'll have a review of Bioammo, I think, in the next issue, hopefully. And if not that, then the last issue of the year. I'm excited because I got into shooting. My first kind of recreational shooting hobby was trap shooting, international trap and sporting clays. I love shotguns. I love shotgun sports. It is prolifically it consumes so much freaking ammo. It's insane. And hulls and wads and all that stuff, man, like to have stuff that breaks down. If you ever walk down range at a trap field, if you ever want to have an argument for, if you look at bioammo and you think this is stupid, what's the big deal? Walk down range at a trap field and look at the wads. Just walk on the wads. It's insane. Like,
yeah, they're not quite as bad as walking on Lego with bare feet, but it's a lot there.
And you just can't help but be like, this is not nice. We probably should be taking better care of things in this. So I'm quite excited to see that one personally. I've had the Athlon. I actually have a few of the Athlon scopes in my giant optics cupboard because we go through a lot of scopes when we test guns. But been really happy with those.
Oh, excellent. Yeah, we've had a couple of local outfitters that have taken some bioammo and tested it, and they've been really pleased with the results, really pleased with how it patterns. And one individual, it was even comparing shot dimensionally to his preferred ammo, and all this shot was the same shape. He didn't have deformed pellets. Like that was his big point, was all the pellets are symmetrically the same, which is what you would think they would be, but you don't always get that.
And that's so interestingly, back when I was shooting shotguns recreationally a ton, we were shooting Olympic trap, and it was with a lot of the Olympic team guys, and we got into ammo a lot. I was reloading all the time, and I got super nerdy into shot, so far as to like how shot is formed and the different ways that it's made and stuff like that.
Yeah.
There's been a few big sea changes in shot shell manufacturing in the last probably 30 to 40 years. I'd be very curious to see if bioammo's performance could be potentially pertaining to the fact that they're probably building this on newer tooling. Than a lot of that existing ammo. I mean, those shot shell lines are probably some of the most neglected ammo lines in the industry. They don't come at them very frequently. Every once in a while, like Remington will launch the new Hyper Slug, and that'll be okay. That's for the next 5 years. That's their big shot shell launch. You know, you don't see much. I mean, Christ, when was the last time one new promo load in 10 years of working in this industry? You know, like it's pretty uncommon. So I suspect some of that tooling is really old. So I'm very excited to try that. I'm Dan Furter from Caliber Magazine. If you want to support what we're doing, head over to calibermag.ca/subscribe to get 6 issues delivered to your door for reviews of things like bioammo and Athlon scopes, and hopefully one of those new Daniel Defense bolt-action rifles, if I can pry it out of your guys' hands at some point. That's been Gunvote for Thursday the 16th. Hopefully in 3 days, you guys are going to start thinking about voting, because that would mean that'll be right before Monday when we actually will vote. Things are so freaking close that if you can't do anything but vote, go please God vote. You absolutely can't afford not to. If you can volunteer, that would be helpful too, because things are very, very tight. If you're in Manitoba, stop on by Verdun there, and maybe you can chat with Matt about why people there feel so strongly about the Purple Party. Just an oddity.
You're always welcome.
Thanks so much for your time, Matt. We will see you all tomorrow. Have yourselves a great Thursday. Adios.
Perfect.